Hi, it's Corey. Let's finish this. Hair is all about finding out where you want reflections to be. I decide to have the hair alternate blue and purple highlights, so I build up in some sections from a purple base by adding fluorescent magenta and eventually lemon white. For the blue areas, I do the same, just with an icy blue instead of magenta. Hair is the most satisfying thing to paint. It's just making passes and watching it all come together. I tried making an eye like the Total War video game, the way that the Zinch stuff is represented. Anyway, my previous painting have always been way too busy. I know this now. It's because I make my palette way too dense. There's way too many colors. So most of the additions today, I'm doing using colors already on the model. This is all the same as the hair. I haven't painted eyes of this size before, not fake ones. So I googled the Eye of Sauron and just kind of muddled my way in that direction. Eyes have a tonal texture to them, so I try to create that with the Baroth blue within the glint of the iris and outside of it. All this brushwork needs to be way brighter than our final result. I'm setting things up for easy airbrushing because we want to have a very easy glow effect. I use the same magenta as the hair, then mix in some really dark purple for the smoky ends of the flame trails. The cloth is the easiest thing on this model, and when I've shown it to a few people, the first thing that they were like, "Oh, look at that cloth! That looks so sick," which is frustrating because it's not the thing that took like dozens and dozens of hours. But that's okay. It's okay. It's all right. You airbrush everything darker gray, and then you spray it from high points with a lighter gray. That's it. I also airbrushed it with magenta directly from the bottom to show kind of an ethereal glow, and you'll see why later. But I did that at like 2 a.m. and I forgot to film it, but it's just a shot of straight magenta from the bottom of the cloth. For the base, I just found something online and I printed it. And I jammed a bunch of flocking and moss over the print failures and parts where I glued it together. Real artists don't improve, they just cover up their failures. If you've painted models before, I'm sure you've dry brushed brick, but the reason I'm dry brushing mostly plain whites and grays is I'm going to use contrast paints to paint individual bricks, shrubs, and mossy areas. So I'm kind of just doing almost like you'd do a pre-shading. I'm not normally a fan of this Plague Bearer flesh contrast paint, but it's perfect for moss. Pigments aren't really necessary either, but I'm adding this because I have another army I'm trying to match this to, and I use the same sort of pigments on them. But, you know, it adds a little bit of variety. Nothing wrong with that. The bones sections are pretty much the way that you'd paint any skeleton. I use an off-white very close to where the bony parts come out of the fleshy bits. Then I go progressively yellower and browner the further away from the fleshy parts it protrudes. Then I decide I hate the bone and I'm grumpy and this isn't sparking joy, so I pull the serotonin ejection cord in my brain and move on to something else. I do come back to this though, but first I drown it all in Agrax Earthshade because that feels very satisfying to me. I enjoy that. If you want to know how to paint these feathers, check out the first video in this Magnus painting series. Statistically, probably the only video anybody will watch. Unless you're watching this, in which case you probably already watched it. So this is probably very pointless. After a week of playing Baldur's Gate 3, or a couple weeks or so, I come back to the base and decide it's going to be rippling with overwhelming Eldritch energy. So I airbrush cobwebs of purple kind of power all over, fill those in by adding a little bit of magenta to the mix, and then finally pure white to the mix. I never clean out my airbrush through any part of this. I just keep adding progressively lighter and lighter colors and use them to fill in the cobwebs. Now for all of the little details and doodads, except for the magical eye thing. I don't know where it is. There's a little magic eye thing that hangs on his belt, and I lost it. I think I might have vacuumed it up because my mom was coming over, and I was kind of in a panic, and I didn't really have a chance to make sure nothing fell on the floor. It is crazy how much it bothers me that I don't know where that thing is. Dabbling at things with sponges rules, and people should do it more often. It's great for leather. It creates that texture really, really easily. I add a ton of flow aid to magenta, then white to paint the recesses in the book to give it kind of a magical glow, like it's got energy coming out of it. For the sword, I do the same thing that I did with the book from earlier. It makes it much easier to stay in those super fine recesses. I spent something like 15 minutes trying to get this scroll to fit here, but I couldn't because the WWE belt buckle thing and the leg guard were in this very particular place, and if I got it in, they would just kind of move out of position. And I was just in disbelief about it, so I kept trying to make it fit, and I got paint on things, and then some paint came off the belt buckle I had to touch up, and then some paint came off the leg that I had to touch up, which was gluing it over top of his cute little puppy dog tail on his back, and I think that's okay. It's fine. Okay, so it's bone-in time. I ended up using my original colors and just using them to paint lines onto the bone areas to give some almost like tree trunk-like texture to them, then glazing them into uniformity with Agrax Earthshade. And taking a break while waiting for paint to dry to just work on some eyeballs here and there. I really like how the bones worked out, and sometimes you just need to walk away from something. I hated them before, but coming back to them, I kind of felt inspired. If you want to see how I turn these into icicles, click the link above. Hey, it's been months. It's done.